Hi everyone, this is Rinto Yagawa from Keio University. In this talk, I'm going to present our work, which is Learning Food Picking Without Food, Fracture Anticipation by Breaking Reusable Fragile Objects. The goal of our research is to pick up multiple types of fragile food objects without breaking them. The key idea of our food picking method is to anticipate the fracture timing of target food objects. When a future fracture is anticipated, we stop closing the gripper and pick up the target food object. Previous research challenged picking up food objects by training a model specific to each target food. A dataset was composed of breaking experiences of target food objects. This approach enabled anticipation of future fracture of unseen food objects. However, it requires undesirable food consumption for tuning robots to each food. Therefore, we propose a new approach to anticipate future fracture by collecting breaking experiences of reusable fragile objects to train a single model and apply meta-learning for domain generalization. Using breaking experiences of reusable fragile objects can reduce undesirable food consumption. The left image shows tactile signals of breakage experiences of food and reusable fragile objects. We carefully chose 4 objects that can be recovered effortlessly and express multiple fracture patterns similar to real food. We assume 3 fracture patterns: crushing, cracking, and rupturing. In real robot experiments, we try not to cause these fractures. For collecting data on breakage experiences, we assembled the toy blocks into multiple fragile shapes to imitate the food's intra-category differences. Our goal is to enable robots to pick up food objects without breaking them, and to do that, we aim to anticipate a fracture delta time steps in advance from inputting sequence tactile data. For our network architecture, we adopted a simple LSTM classifier. To compensate for the gap between the reusable fragile objects and the target food objects, we employ a domain generalization technique using meta-learning. We chose meta-learning for expecting the model to learn fracture features common to various objects and apply them to food. First, we pre-train the entire model with all training samples. Then, we freeze the parameter of the encoder and update the parameters of dense layer using the MAML algorithm. In MLDG, we split meta-train and meta-validation in a leave-on-object-out manner. For testing, we first input sequence tactile data to anticipate future fracture of target food objects. When the model anticipates future fracture, the robot stops closing the gripper and picks up food objects. For dataset generation and real robot food grasping, we used Open Manipulator X and a Hall effect tactile sensor affixed to the inward-facing side of each gripper. Each sensor is a composite of 4 × 4 tactiles, and each tactile measures a 3-axis force signal. We collected tactile sensor data by sampling in 40 Hz intervals. This is about dataset generation. The top row video shows how we collect breakage experiences and create the dataset, and the bottom row shows the transition of tactile sensor values. For online grasping performance, we tested 5 different food objects. For the baseline, we used the model trained by only pre-train, and for our method, we used the model trained by pre-train and meta-learning. The results showed that the baseline performs well with bananas, tomatoes, and potato chips. Moreover, domain generalization improved the grasping performance of most objects, however it degraded the grasping performance of tomatoes. I will show some examples of picking failure cases when using the baseline method. The robot crushes the tofu cuboid and cube, drops the banana, and cracks the potato chip. On the other hand, using the model trained by MLDG, grasping of tofu cuboid successes 11 times in 20 attempts without crushing. Grasping the tofu cube, which is half the size of a tofu cuboid, successes 90 times in 20 attempts without crushing. Grasping of banana successes 20 times in 20 attempts without crushing or dropping it. The force of the tactile sensor is slightly greater than tofu. Grasping a potato chip placed in an upward concave way successes 90 times in 20 attempts without cracking. And finally, grasping of tomato successes 16 times in 20 attempts without creating any rupture. In conclusion, the results show we can train a food picking robot without food. Because we used reusable fragile objects for the dataset, we applied MLDG to solve the domain shift problem. Applying MLDG led to improved grasping success in most of the target food objects. Thank you for listening.